All right, I've started the webinar and I'm just going to wait for people to come in and take their seats as they pile into the arena. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Gary Grotto. I'm the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, and thank you for joining us for Morning Scoop. And today we're going to discuss a recent study commissioned by Helios Foundation and Education Forward Arizona that shines a light on how post-secondary education benefits not only the individual, but also society and the state. And in recent years, the conventional wisdom that earning a college degree will bring a lifetime of increased earnings and a better quality of life, that's come into question a little bit. And our panelists today say there's still benefits to attaining that associate's degree or bachelor's degree or more, and they have the data to back it up. And to bring us our discussion today are two of Arizona's education-focused organizations, Helios Foundation and Education Forward Arizona. Now, usually at this time, at this point in the show, I'll tell you a little bit about our sponsor, but today I'm going to leave that to our two of our panelists, Paul Luna, the president and CEO of Helios Foundation, and Rich Nickel, the president and CEO of Education Forward. So good morning, gentlemen. And can you tell us a little bit about your respective organizations and tell us why we're here today?
Well, I'll start, Gary. And first off, my name is Paul Luna. I'm the president and CEO of Helios Education Foundation. And let me begin by just saying to everyone, good morning. Thank you for taking the time to be with us and listen to what we think is a really important topic of conversation, not just around education, but around the future of the state of Arizona and the important tie between education and education attainment and the future of our state. Our vibrancy, our economy, our ability to attract companies, to really create, what many will say the Arizona that we really uniquely want and can build. We often believe that comes through education. So Helios Education Foundation is a not-for-profit entity that was founded and created through the conversion and sale of a student loan company about 16, 17 years ago. We have one vision, which is that every student in Arizona and Florida, which are the two states that we serve, that every student will be successful in post-secondary education. And that's really, I think, what we're here to talk about today. So again, Gary, I want to thank you and the team at the Capital Times for bringing attention to this important topic and really the work that you and the Capital Times does to help to elevate these types of conversations and the conversations that are critically important to the state of Arizona. And yes, as you indicated, Helios is very proud to partner with Education Forward Arizona, our partner, Rich Nickel, and he'll speak a bit about his organization. But jointly, we were able to partner, develop research around the economic benefits of education after high school. And we did it for one simple reason, and it's because we believe strongly that getting to and through college benefits not only the individual, but our communities and the state. It really manifests in this idea of what is the transformational power of education and why does it matter? And we think this conversation that we're having today, that I hope that our audience and many will find valuable, really puts into dollar and cent terms what it really means to earn a college degree, and why is it worth it. And Gary, you're absolutely right when you say that it's fair to say that there have been voices that have been elevated more recently, really questioning the value of college. And actually making statements that it really is not worth it, that it's not something that is worth pursuing. And it's become a growing conversation. Is it worth it? Who should go? Who really benefits? And there's a point of view that the only person that benefits is that individual. Well, we're here, I think, today with data to really bring a counter argument to that point of view, to really suggest that college, in fact, is worth it. And it's not only worth it to the individual, but it's worth it to the families, the neighborhoods, the communities, and ultimately our state. And it's worth it because it's what will help drive our states forward from an economic vitality perspective. So there is a case to be made that what really makes it worth it is not just the social value and benefit of a more educated workforce, but the actual economic value of students earning some type of post-secondary education degree after high school becomes critically important. The research that we'll walk through today in just a moment, I think, is very powerful. And it shows that getting an education really does matter. And that we as a state, if we embrace this concept, if we truly meaningfully embrace this concept and engage with resources, and that's not just financial resources, but we engage with resources to make it easier for our students to earn that post-secondary education degree, that the value to our state will be defined in dollars and cents. And that's what we're really excited to be talking about today. Increasing attainment and investing in resources that will increase that attainment is really an investment in the future of our state in a very meaningful way. And the more students that we can get to go to college and to be successful in college, it should be a priority for our state. It should be one of the top priorities that we and all of our leaders in our state should fully embrace, because as we'll present today, the data is there's a financial economic benefit to the state by doing this. And so we're here and we're thankful for the opportunity to share this information and data. We're thank you for the panel members that are here to share more about why this matters. And I look forward to the conversation that we're about to have.
Thank you, Paul.
Rich?
And my
Okay.
apologies for not introducing you by name. But I will make sure. Rich Nickel from Education Forward Arizona. He's the CEO and president.
Hi, Gary. Thank you for bringing us all together this morning. It's great to see that we have, well over 100 people on the call that are interested in this topic, and they should be. Like Gary said, I'm Rich Nickel. I'm with Education Forward Arizona. And what we do is we work to build public will for and support improvements to public education, really starting early and all the way through post-secondary attainment. And when we talk about attainment, what we're really talking about is a high value credential of some sort that happens after high school. So whether you get that through a community college, through a private school, whether that means a high value certificate or license or a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree, that's all attainment. And most of those credentials are received through an institution that's here in the state, a post-secondary institution. So when we talk about college and post-secondary attainment, we're really talking about all of those high value living wage credentials that we have to have in the state to really fill all these great jobs that our economic development folks keep bringing us all across Arizona and have people get those 21st century skills. So the North Star of our work, and really the North Star of the Arizona Education Progress Meter, is the state's attainment goal of 60% of all Arizona adults having that some type of education beyond high school, one of those high value credentials that we talked about. We are super excited to partner with Helios on this report. And we believe the findings are going to do just what Paul said, which is make it abundantly clear that a more highly educated Arizona benefits us all, not just the individual from the increased earnings, but really communities, families, the entire state can benefit in increased earnings, increased taxes, and also reduced social spending that we do in a highly educated population. So we all need to work together on that. I'm looking forward to this discussion. And again, Gary, just thank you for bringing us and 125 other people that are on the phone right now together for this conversation.
Thank you, Rich. And now I'd like to introduce the rest of our panel. And first we have Dr. Marla Franco, the Vice President of the Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives at the University of Arizona. And in her more than 20 years of higher education, Dr. Franco has worked at public universities in California and Arizona to champion college access and degree attainment for underserved and underrepresented students. Dr. Franco is also the founder of the Arizona HSI Consortium and STEM and HSI Working Group. Good morning, Dr. Franco.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone who's on this call this morning. I'm really looking forward to some of the conversation that we are not only going to have this morning, but I think key insights from the report, I think, will help guide our conversation and our strategies throughout the state. I know that most certainly at the University of Arizona and through our collective community of practice known as the AZ-HSI Consortium, we're excited about leveraging the insights from this report to continue fueling the work that we're considerably passionate about. The state of Arizona actually has 20 Hispanic serving institutions in our state. Nationally, there are 559 Hispanic serving institutions. And really what that is, it's actually a federal designation that comes to us by way of the U.S. Department of Education that acknowledges colleges and universities across the nation that enroll at least 25% undergraduate Hispanic enrollment. Arizona is actually 5th in the nation in terms of the highest Latino population. And when you look at our K through 12 population, we are 45% Latino in that segment of the educational pathway and pipeline. So if we're not giving concerted focus and strategy and solution building, particularly around this population, I think that we will gravely miss the mark on the goals of educational attainment in the state of Arizona. So I'm excited to be here and happy to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. And next we have Dr. Paul Peralt. Dr. Peralt is Senior Vice President, Community Impact and Learning for Helios Education Foundation. Dr. Peralt is charged with leading the development of the Foundation's research and evaluation agenda and managing Helios grants and project management team. He comes to Helios with more than 15 years of research and evaluation experience. And prior to joining Helios, he was a researcher at the Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan, where he served as a lead investigator on Arizona's Move On When Ready evaluation and as principal investigator on Yuma's Ready Now Yuma evaluation. Good morning, Dr. Peralt.
Good morning, Gary. Glad to be here with everyone today.
Great. Now, before we dive in here, I just want to remind everybody that we have the chat open, and we encourage our audience to send us questions and comments, and we will try to get to as many as we can as time allows. So fire it up and throw a question our way. So I'd like to begin with you, Dr. Peralt, and before we go too deep into the findings of your study and so forth, can you first tell us just a little bit about the study in itself and its methodology? And while you do that, I'll go ahead and put up some slides for our audience to see.
Thank you, Gary. I really would like to start off by, again, thanking Paul Luna and Rich Nickel, who really had the foresight for us to do this research. This is our opportunities to show that, the importance of college and the importance of having that post-secondary degree attainment is not anecdotal, and that the data really shows the power and the impact of that. As we think about this, let me talk a little bit about the methodology first. So, to carry out this study, Helios Education Foundation and Ed Forward partnered with Clive Belfield. And Clive is a national leading economist at the Department of Economics at Queens College and at the City University of New York. So for our analysis that we're going to be talking about today, we used a single cohort of basically about 69,000 students, high school graduate students from Arizona's public schools, the class of 2022, for our model that we modeled this out on. The model uses a number of factors on job needs and the economy, and demonstrates overall the economic impact of college attainment for Arizona over the lifetime of a student and this cohort of all of our 2022 graduates. Now we do this and we apply this at a statewide level, and we also can dig deeper. We won't talk about it as much today, but we can dig deeper and look at specific localities within the state. The analysis shows the economic impact of increasing attainment among different demographic groups, and we'll probably have some opportunities to talk about that today and what that means. And finally, our model really looks at economic losses from the pandemic, because the pandemic did slow us down, and what's that meant for us in the state of Arizona. Just some highlights from this research before we get into some big discussion. Our model looks at the economic impact in three important ways. So we're just not looking at, as Paul talked about, one way to think about economic benefit. First, it looks at the impacts at the individual level. So individual benefits from college attainment, primarily in terms of higher lifetime earnings. Additional benefits include increased labor force participation and job security. We also look at the social impact benefits. So social impact shows how college enrollment and completion are good for communities in the state of Arizona as a whole. They lead to increases in gross earnings and health status, as well as reductions of crime and other social consequences influenced by increased attainment. And last and thirdly, we look at fiscal impact. And fiscal impact reflects the beneficial tax consequences at the federal and state and local levels related to increased enrollment and completion. So for example, higher revenues and lower public expenditures, such as on health and crime that we just talked about, social. Gary, if you'll go to the second one, the next slide.
Let me see if I can get it to move. There we go.
We looked at these three separate ways that individual, social, and fiscal measuring impact, because we felt that there were a number of key factors that were important to us. A few that topped the list are included here. So lifetime earnings, what are you going to actually have across your lifetime as a working adult? Taxes, the differences in tax payments and based upon education levels and earnings, and how that influences the state. Health, how are we going to be more healthy as a state, have people that have more opportunities for healthcare that comes along with these better paying jobs that are associated with higher education. And finally, the reduction in crime. How do we make sure that our cities, our communities stay safe and we don't have a lot of crime, and that we're really working to build better opportunities for everyone. Now, how did that play out? How it plays out is in this slide right here, Gary. So if we look at this current graphic here, it shows the benefits of attainment for individuals over time. And what we really see is that that popped up in front of me. What we can observe is individuals with a bachelor's degree are projected to earn nearly 3 times of that as a high school graduate over their lifetime. So for everyone just on the call right now, think about that. If you were, a graduating senior and you said, you have this path where you can earn this much, or you have this other path where you can earn 3 times as much. I mean, it should be an easy decision. This should not be a hard decision that we're thinking about with the economic benefits that come from getting a bachelor's degree in the state of Arizona. Even if we looked at an associate's, compared to a high school degree, basically a third more over what a high school degree has. And so really the benefits of having that post-secondary degree, and especially a bachelor's or higher, really sets you up for future opportunities and more job security. If you go to the next slide, Gary. Now we can also think about this as lifetime social gains. So again, the social gains again are like, the health status, reductions in crime. And here, when we look at that, we can see that a bachelor's degree around the social status or social impact is about $982,680 when we look at this. Now, what this means, we look to the right on this graphic, if we look at the social impacts of increased enrollment and completion, if we just increased 10% college completion for the 2022 cohort, that would equal $1,370 million more in social impacts for the state of Arizona. Just phenomenal impacts. while we didn't create a slide ultimately for fiscal, when we think about the individual gains, the social gains, it does mean better opportunities with fiscal opportunities. As people are spending more in the economy, companies are here with better jobs. We have more opportunity for better services, lower taxes, and more opportunities to put more education resources or financial resources into our education system, ultimately continuing to build that pipeline even stronger. So let me turn it back over to you, Gary, after walking through these points.
All right, thank you, Paul. And so let's talk first about the impact of post-secondary on individuals. And Dr. Pearl, what's our current post-secondary attainment rate? Where are we at right now?
Sorry. It fluctuates. Our ultimate goal, Gary, is really to get to 60%. And, we're in a range of, when we look at certificates, we're in a range of, between 40 to 48%, depending on the way that we count certificates. But our ultimate goal is really to get to that 60%, the achieve 60 goal that we have for the state.
All right. And I think your report said it was, like right now, right around 46%. So we got a ways to go. And
Gary, I'm happy to step in and give a little more precise answer on that attainment question. So right now we're at 48%. We grew 2 percentage points over the last year. 2 percentage points doesn't sound like a lot, but we knew when we started this at 5 years ago, we had this delta of 18 percentage points between 42% and 60%. And we needed 1 million degrees, certificates, licenses to make that 60%. You do the quick math on that, that's about 55,000 individuals earning those high value credentials for each point. So even in the last year, we've grown just 2 points, which doesn't sound like a lot. That means over 100,000 people, 110,000 people, have now earned or have come to our state with that type of high value credential. That alone, that byproduct of pursuing the goal, 100,000 more people this year, is hundreds of millions of dollars of economic benefit to our state. So we shouldn't overlook these what seem like small gains, because we're really looking at massive numbers of people, and we're making good progress. So we have a long way to go, but even those that 1 basis point gain is bringing hundreds of millions of dollars to our state in economic benefit and social savings.
All right, thank you, Rich. And Paul, your report mentions that there's some disparity in college enrollment completion rates along racial lines. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. And first, I want to begin with, again, some context. I see questions and chats in the links here, and just want to make sure that we address one thing: is when we're looking at post-secondary attainment, as Rich just indicated, it is when we say sometimes generally college, it is the full spectrum of academic pathways that a student can pursue, right? And we talk about licenses and other types of credentials in 2 years and 4-year degrees. So this report and post-secondary attainment is inclusive of all of that. And we recognize and we value that. But what we also recognize, and here what the data is showing, is that this question of is college and university degree completion worth it, which I know a narrative has been shared that it's not, is I think what this research is bringing data to dispel. When you look at the economic impact, again, for individuals, families, communities of post-secondary degree completion, and in particular, a 4-year college degree, what we're seeing is that it brings so much additional value to our state and to the economy and to the direction that we want to take our state. And then when you dig in and you look at our student population, the reality is, and this is back to the data points, is the majority of students in the education pipeline now are students of color and low-income students. And these are students who have traditionally not had equal opportunity to pursue any type of post-secondary education. And so there is a gap when you look at the data. There is a gap between those students that are achieving post-secondary degree success compared to students that come from traditionally underserved, low-income minority backgrounds. So we have to acknowledge that as well. We have to look at the data and say, there are these gaps that exist, and they do exist across the full continuum. You see it in metrics of students at proficiently reading at third grade. And you see a gap between Latino students, who are the majority, again, of the student population in our pipeline of students. You see this gap between student attainment at third grade reading, at college going rates, at degree completion rates. So there is a point of emphasis that we have to acknowledge that this is an opportunity for Arizona. We have a young potential workforce that's moving its way through our education system. And the question for us as a state is, are we going to embrace the learnings of this research that says the more of these students that we can get into post-secondary degree completion, and again, degree meaning certificate, license, 2-year, 4-year, the benefits to them and our state are significant. And that's why we talk about closing these equity gaps. That's why we talk about improving statewide attainment. That's why we have a Hispanic Serving Institution Consortium, where we're working specifically on recognizing that more students coming to our colleges and universities are going to be students of color, predominantly Latino, and we have to serve them differently and better based on where they're coming from in order to ensure that they're successful. So there's this is in place. We have the ability to do it. I think from a state of Arizona perspective, we have to lean into it more and make it a priority and continue to perform and execute to address some of these equity gaps. And I know that Dr. Franco has been leading our efforts around the Hispanic Serving Institution work. And I think it might be a good time to hear from her as to, how are those efforts coming about, and what do we see and what have we learned? Because I think it should give us hope for what the future could be for our state.
And I was going to call on Dr. Franco next. And so Dr. Franco, you spoke a little bit of, in your introduction there about HSI, and can you, elaborate on it a little bit, and in terms of explaining how it helps to achieve the degree attainment and contributes to, economic benefits of an individual?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the HSI designation, the actual federal designation, does not come along with anything additionally that defines an HSI. Simply, it's the enrollment criteria that defines it. So it really is up to HSIs themselves to define for themselves how they want to embrace the designation, how intentionally they are being thoughtful in their practices and strategies around ensuring access and equity in degree attainment. And so we're very committed to taking an intentional approach. And so thanks to the support of the Helios Education Foundation and the Arizona Community Foundation, we were actually able to launch in 2021 the AZ HSI Consortium. Myself, along with our co-founder, Dr. Ray Rivera, who serves as president at Estrella Mountain Community College, we really came together to forge a partnership across 4-year and 2-year community college HSIs in the state. Because while there are pockets of excellent practice across our 20 Hispanic serving institutions in the state of Arizona, we knew that coming together, we could achieve more collectively. So we're super excited with the support that we've had in the past year to really double down on 2 things. And this was really informed by the input that we had actually taken time to gather at the onset of the launch of the consortium. One is the community said that they wanted to come together annually to really engage in the rigorous exchange of best practices, and really developing the types of partnerships that we need to see across our state. And so we were super excited in the fall of last year to launch the inaugural AZ HSI Summit. And we actually brought together nearly 200 faculty, staff, students, administrators from across the state, along with key stakeholder partners represented by community organizations, nonprofit organizations with like-minded missions. And we had an incredible day of exchange of best practices, rigorous conversation about what should come next. And we're very excited to have seen 20 sessions co-facilitated that day. A highly engaged student panel. Students came from all over the state talking about their own lived experiences about what educational access and attainment means to them, their families, and their communities, which I think needs to continue to inspire and guide these conversations as well.
And what did those students say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think collectively, the community said a couple of things. One key takeaway is that they communicated that we need to take a closer look at both our data and our practices and actually challenge how we operate. So part of what we need to do with this report is look introspectively at our own practices, our own policies and procedures, right? And our own ability to kind of unclog the sink to educational access and attainment. And so how do we begin to identify those barriers and reduce them systematically? Otherwise, we're essentially just tinkering at the margins. And I think that that's not going to get us to reaching the educational attainment rates that we are talking about this morning.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Franco. Rich, can you, let's move on to, the social value of post-secondary education. First of all, can you just tell us, I think Paul touched, or Dr. Peralt touched on it a little bit, but tell us or define for us social gains.
Would love to. Talking about social gains really gets to I think the heart of the issue. We see education as unifying, not divisive. And so what we really want to do is, think about how we prepare students while they're in Arizona's high schools or other places they might come to our state from, to have these great options after high school about what they want to do. And, we talked about how we're trending in the right direction as far as our gains towards attainment, but we have a lot further to go. And so when we think about social gains, and Paul talked a little bit about this, they really become a big part of the story, because not only are we looking at how much more people can earn on their own, which means you're going to pay more taxes, but that also means then that, communities are going to save because we've invested in having students make these great choices about the lifestyles they want to lead and careers they want to have after college, because they're going to save on things like prison systems. We know that students that get a good post-secondary education, have a good job, typically don't end up in prison. We know that folks who are highly educated don't use subsidized housing and medicine as much. So when you really start thinking about what the community savings are, these kind of social savings, if you will, it really pumps up the entire economic impact of attainment in ways then that make it valuable for communities, which then gives them more to invest in other things that folks want to see here in the state. So, one of the things we've done to try to keep us moving in the right direction, last year we brought 300 students, parents, educators, community leaders, state leaders, really from all four corners of the state to several convenings to ask about, what do we need to do to keep moving towards the goals that are in the Arizona Education Progress Meter? So one of the things, if you go to our site, you'll be able to see is this action plan that really talks about concrete steps we can take to not only get to the attainment goal, that North Star, but also to move us through these milestones, starting with quality early learning, and then thinking about how we get more folks to enroll in some type of post-secondary education, whether that's at a university level or community college level or a trade school or private school, after high school. So if folks are interested in seeing that and some of those steps and some of those practical kind of common sense investments that we can make in education to give folks those choices, you can go to our website at educationforwardarizona.org.
Thank you, Rich. And, there was, when we spoke the other day, you gave me this kind of startling number. So what gains do we get from a 20% increase in enrollment in college?
The 20% gains in enrollment in college could mean literally over $1 billion of impact to our state. And when you think about it, 20%, it sounds like a lot until you start breaking it down by school. Paul Luna shares a story sometimes, and I'll share it on his behalf here. He comes from Miami in Arizona, not Florida. And, he teases sometimes to get 20% there more. And the data shows that you basically need 10 more people to attend a post-secondary institution after school. And, there might be 10 people that know each other there that Paul could talk into going. But seriously, 20% sounds like a lot. But when you break it down by school, and Helios has great ways to show this through data they've collected, it really looks more manageable. And, it's something we can accomplish. And the gains to those individuals, their families, their communities, the entire state are massive and are really life-changing and transformative to building the generational wealth, especially when you think about those folks who are not attending today, this opportunity group of students from low-income families, students from rural Arizona, students who maybe are first in their family, our fast-growing Latino population in K-12, which is now almost 50% of our K-12 population. I mean, that is transformative benefit that comes from more people enrolling in some type of post-secondary institution and getting a post-secondary credential after high school.
And Gary, I just want to highlight too, to flip that around for a second. Actually, the 20% enrollment, it would lead to more than 5 billion in social gains. It's the completion. If you get 10%, that would be 1,1,370,000,000. So really, even getting them to college and getting them some college or associates, and it keeps growing, would lead to really about 5 billion in social gains for the state of Arizona.
Yeah,
And that's completion, right? Or is it just
the completion is a 10% gain in completion would be 1,370,000,000.
okay?
The 20% increase in enrollment would be 5 billion.
Okay. And when I heard that the other day, it really struck me. So
and Gary, if I might make a point, if I could, I apologize. I want to piggyback off of kind of the general comments that Rich were making, and they were tying it to, the increased college going rate, the increased degree completion rate, and putting it in these financial terms. But I want to emphasize the point around the statewide importance of this work and what we're talking about today, this idea of increasing our college enrollment and college attainment, is that it does take all of us across the entire state to do our part for us to be successful. So this is not an initiative or a point of view that says a certain part or a certain geography of Arizona is where these increased attainment needs to come from. And as Rich said, I'm a very proud Arizona native. I was born in Miami, Arizona, grew up there, many friends. And for a number of us, growing up there, it really was, we were tied to the copper industry. And my dad was a laborer. And we come from a mindset of hard work and commitment to that work that my dad did as a laborer every day. There's value in that, and we get that and we see that. But I'll just share my dad's point of view that said to me, he goes, I'd be proud if you want to come work side by side with me at the copper mine. It's good work. It's honest work. He goes, but what I really want for you is a college education so that you have options, so that you have the choice to determine whether or not you want to work as a laborer here with me, or you use your college degree to open up other opportunities, whatever you want to do. So this is not suggesting that that college degree is of value compared to someone else. It's really essentially saying this is how we bring increased opportunity for every individual. And we're talking about every individual across every community. And we're not minimizing the importance of every high school doing the part. We talk about what impact would it get if we get 20% more college enrollment. Well, in order to get there, we would need every high school in Arizona to do its part. And I think the point Rich made is it actually is tangible. You know, when you look at my hometown, my community, and Miami High School, and you think about 10 additional students over the next 4 years going to college, getting that 20% increase in college enrollment, well, that's significant, that's impactful, but it's also doable because we know each other in the community. We know some of the students who are right on the cusp. And if we provide the right supports, if we address some of the barriers that do exist, we're going to enable these students to succeed. And there's power in that.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. And so let's talk about the fiscal gains. And, that's taxes and those kinds of things. So Dr. Peralt, can you guys use a term in your report, lifetime fiscal gains. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and the lifetime fiscal gains is really, again, we're looking at a cohort of students that graduate in 2022. So when we're talking about the individual kind of benefits, we're looking at what the lifetime earnings that they're going to have over time. And then when we look at the fiscal gains, we're looking at the fiscal gains from that whole cohort of students by them going to college and them completing. And so that's really what we're talking about when we're thinking about that lifelong. And so, for example, if we had a 20% college enrollment increase in our fiscal gains would be about $1.820 billion in additional revenues that would come in, or the fiscal gains, because we had more students going to college, more students completing, leading to better jobs in the state of Arizona. So you see how that's circular. You think about all of these when we talk about them as almost like a connected circle. You got the individual creates more money, that creates better opportunities for those social gains. So less crime, better hospitals, better health. Bringing more money because of those better paying jobs and opportunities to the state because people are buying more, property taxes, other things like that. And so that circle keeps making a stronger and stronger Arizona. That's why if we actually look back and we think about what a 20% enrollment increase does, or a 10% completion, that's why we can see these numbers. If we look at that whole whole cohort dramatically increasing, what it means financially for the state of Arizona and the individual.
And Paul, Helios has done a lot of work, looking at the effects of the pandemic on education. And can you talk about, how the pandemic affected the student achievement and growth, and, how it affects the college readiness, and how it, I guess, tie it into this conversation?
And Gary, you said Paul, so I want to make sure it's the right Paul. You want?
Yeah,
okay.
You're Dr. Peralt.
I'll start off.
Like...
So Paul Peralt, you start, and I'll chime in behind you.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about it from the financial. So when really looking, when we did the analysis around the financial, the pandemic really slowed down opportunities, and really about a $90,000 income loss or over time because of the pandemic. And what we saw is a lot of students that didn't have the opportunity or thought that they could go to college. We saw FAFSA rates go down. We saw college going rates, not only in Arizona, but across the country, especially in the 2-year colleges, go down. And so the pandemic, really hampered or slowed down things, because what we were seeing as positive gains going to college across, all race and ethnicity groups, free and reduced lunch status, really kind of got hammered and slowed. And it slowed mostly for those students that were low income or minority students. And so when we think about that, that's where the pandemic has really kind of influenced, what's happening with the economy and where we're going.
And what I'll speak to a bit, Gary, is just, you talked about the impacts of the pandemic and COVID on students and communities. And there's a lot of research and work that we've done in that space as well. And we've shared, for example, the implications around chronic absenteeism, an issue that was there prior to the pandemic for many students. Chronic absenteeism, meaning by definition, a student missing 10% or more of the school days in that particular school year. In Arizona, that would be 18 school days or more a year. And how that has significantly increased and become more of a crisis coming out of the pandemic. We've talked, and you've heard a lot about learning loss, and that's true across the entire education continuum, where students have fallen back in their academic preparedness and their abilities as they move academically forward. But we see that impact also more so on low income, traditionally underserved student populations as well. What the pandemic in general shows in terms of implications is it impacted every student. But students who were doing well in the education system prior to the pandemic have sort of rebounded for the most part. The students that have been struggling in the past, and again, the traditionally underserved student population, are the ones that continue to struggle. And that's why we put this emphasis about the importance of needing to engage our students and increase that academic preparedness so that they can be successful across the full education continuum. Whether it's access to rigorous coursework, which we know is an important element of preparing students to be successful when they go into some type of post-secondary education environment. We've been working with a number of partners. We at Helios Education Foundation have been working with Education Forward, the universities, the community colleges to help expand, for example, dual enrollment. Let's get more of our high school students access to college coursework, and especially in the case of dual enrollment, coursework that can actually provide them some academic credentials before they actually even go to college. This helps reduce the cost of college ultimately. It helps make sure that they're prepared academically to succeed. In fact, when this high school student takes a dual enrollment course and passes it, by definition, they're already a college student. So we're changing the mindset by some of these types of approaches. And there's a specific bill in the legislature, Senate Bill 1717, that many of us are working on to try to expand dual enrollment opportunities, because we believe that leads directly to post-secondary degree completion and attainment, which is at the heart of what we're talking about today, because that then leads to the benefits economically, fiscally, for the state of Arizona.
So you were starting to get into, I guess a look ahead, and, Helios and Education Forward doesn't just do these, research for, just to put out a nice little booklet or anything like that. You guys, make recommendations, and you got some in this study. Rich, can you talk a little bit about the recommendations, starting with, bolstering college readiness and strengthening links between, K-12 and post-secondary?
Sure, Gary. I think the way that most of us look at this is, what are the barriers that people are facing from experiencing greater success in preparation, and then also being able to gain access to and enroll in one of our great institutions here in the state, regardless of where that is. I mean, knowing that all boats have to rise for us to reach this goal, we really look at how to overcome those barriers to get this opportunity group moving into these post-secondary opportunities. So Paul mentioned a biggie. We know the data tells us that dual enrollment, concurrent college is helpful. It's undisputable how helpful it is for students that experience that while they're in high school. Not only does it help from an affordability question because they're getting credits out of the way that they then have to take later on, it's also letting them know that they're prepared to do college level work, and they are going ahead and getting those credits, so it shortens the time to completion. So we know it's incredibly valuable. It has not been accessible in a way that we would like it to be, though, mostly because of pricing and cost issues, and also enough teachers to be able to get that forward. So this Bill 1717 that Paul talks about really creates some incentives for schools to help more teachers be prepared, help more students take advantage of that, which we know from the data we already have is going to increase both access and enrollment, and then also completion. The other things I would think we would talk about is that Arizona today is still one of the states in the country that does not have a targeted financial aid program of substance that really helps those same students we're talking about who aren't participating at the same rates as their peers today, have some hope about going to school based on cost. Our institutions across the state are doing terrific things. We've seen even this week some folks talk about guaranteed admissions and how we make it more affordable. And one big thing we can do is continue to invest in our state's Promise program. And really, that's a financial aid type of program that's really targeted at our low income students who traditionally have had the highest barriers when it comes to affordability. We really have to take that more seriously, invest more as a state, because we see what the outcome is. I mean, the return on these dollars that can be invested by the state of Arizona and the legislature is massive. And there's really just no good reason not to do that. There's a lot of other things that that we're interested in too. I would say those two things are really at the top of the list, though, is how we help with affordability and how we help with dual enrollment and the rigorous coursework also that comes with that, and the supports. And Paul mentioned this, and I guess it's the last thing I'll mention here, is that we have to think about how we recruit and retain teachers. And that has to be at the top of our list every day. And not only teachers, but those who help teachers and help students. We know that even though we made gains on hiring school counselors, who are one of the most important points of contact, we've heard this in polls from parents and students, in helping students think about college and careers, we still are close to the bottom of the country when it comes to the ratio between counselors and students. We have to continue to invest in those types of important support staff and our teachers if we want to help Arizona continue to grow and prosper.
And
If I
Dr.
might add,
Franco?
Gary, our colleges
ahead.
and universities are also doing a much better, have been much better at really engaging students as they are coming to the colleges and university. And I don't know if Dr. Franco might speak to some of that in terms of what you see in terms of students, the supports they need. I know that's a big part of the HSI consortium work around best practices, but you also have a broader university perspective of all students that come to U of A. And how important it is that they be prepared. So just wanted to tee you up, Dr. Franco, to speak to that.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think, some of the programs and services that we see not only at the University of Arizona, but across the state of Arizona among higher education institutions, the efforts that really seem to be quite effective, particularly for our students of color, low-income students, and the first in their family to attend college, are the ones who are our programs and services that are bundling these components together, right? Our students are multifaceted and they have a diverse set of needs. And so not only might they need a program that couples tutoring with financial aid support, with mental health and well-being resources, with parent engagement components. So it's really looking at a constellation of services and really those programs that do that well, that bundle it together, that make it as accessible and easy and accessible for students to access. Those are the ones that demonstrate greatest impact on retaining students in college and degree completion. And so those are really the things that we need to be looking across our state to double down, knowing that the impact has incredible implications for our degree attainment rates across the state of Arizona.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. And I want to take a few questions, at least from the audience. And so I've got one here. I serve on the governing board for a small, rural but diverse school district in a former mining community, and the diversity is Hispanic, Native American. And how can we incorporate information you have provided in our strategic planning? Are there mechanisms for this?
Let me start here, Gary. One of the things that we have here at Education Forward Arizona that we created in partnership with the Center for the Future of Arizona is called the Arizona Education Progress Meter. The nice thing about the progress meter is that it gives us these statewide metrics, 8 simple milestones across the continuum that the state can use to really think about how our students are doing. But also communities can use that data to really dig down into their own communities and see how they may be doing in those 8 key metrics, including the attainment rate. A lot of the communities we work with, and we'll be taking this information out to the entire state, to groups we work with regularly, but a lot of the communities that we work with use this data, even at the school level on some occasions, but at the community level, to dig in to help with their strategic planning. So they can go in and see, hey, did we bounce back after COVID on our 3rd grade reading? And if they didn't, maybe there's some extra work they want to do there, for instance. So that's one key tool I would say you can use. The data is the data. I mean, it's indisputable how much the financial gains can be in the state and for individuals at higher attainment. But this data involved that really can be dug into, I think is really helpful for strategic planning. And I love the question because I think that is the right way to think about it if you're a community leader.
And I think Dr. Peralt could probably answer this one. So, we mentioned the impact of a 20%, 10% increase in billions of dollars. Is that $1 billion a year or just a one-time billion?
That's over the time of the cohort. So like we think about lifetime earnings, it wouldn't be $1 billion a year. It'd be over the time of that cohort while they're working adults. And usually we think about that as, until they're 64, 65 years old.
And a billion's a billion, right? A lot of money. And all right, we got like 5 minutes left, and I'll just kind of throw it around the horn here. And if you folks got any last words, please share them with you. And I guess we'll start with Rich.
Thanks, Gary, and everybody. I'll be super brief here. Education Forward will be meeting with and helping to mobilize anybody, business, civic groups, education leaders, as well as just everyday, citizens across the state around this topic. So you can look for us over the next year, I think, to go out to the community. We work all across the state already, and we want to grow those partnerships to share these findings about the importance of education after high school, and to underscore this concept that we have everything to gain from increasing our attainment rate. And so I would invite those who are on this call today, or those who know others who may be interested in hearing about this as groups, civic groups, town councils, education groups in your community, to reach out to us at Education Forward and let us come and talk to you about these gains, but also help you potentially think about how you might plan as a community or as a group to improve your education outcomes and how we might be helpful. So thank you again, Gary. Really great conversation.
Thank you, Rich. Dr. Peralt?
You're muted, Paul.
Thank you. You think I would have got that figured out by now? So thank you, Gary. It was a great conversation today. Two things I want to close. One is we'll put in we'll put in the link here, a site to our microsite that has lots more data. We threw out lots of data points here. We want people to be able to dig in deeper, really think this through. The other big point that I want to end with is, and you had some questions about it too. And Paul and Rich and Marla talked about this. We don't really have that racial parity in Arizona right now. There are a lot fewer minority students going to college. And one of the things that we should think about is that if we did get closer to that, if we got close to that parity where all of the different groups were going to college at about the same rate, or at least that where white students are going right now, we would see about a 7 billion increase in lifetime earnings, fiscal gains of 3.3 billion, and social gains of 8.69 billion. And as Paul talked about with the, demographic shifts in the state and where we're going, if we really want to be successful, we want to make sure that all students are successful.
Dr. Franco?
Yes, I think as you can see from this morning's conversation, this educational imperative, right, is a social imperative. It is an equity imperative. It is an economic imperative for the state of Arizona. I sure hope that we can collectively, I think, leverage the insights from this report to really staunchly pursue some key points worth advocating for, so that we can really develop, I think, some systemic statewide solutions that really help us, I think, do the work that we collectively need to do and want to do.
Thank you. And Paul, take us out.
Well, thank you. Well, I will close first with Gary thanking you once again and your team for doing such a great job of bringing these types of topics to the community for conversation, for discussion, for sharing. And I think that's what I would leave with, is this idea that, and I'll go back to the question from the rural community leader asking about how do we incorporate this work as we move forward. And part of that, I would say, is you'll notice and I think of this, I'll speak specifically from a Helios perspective on this. We want to bring data and information to the dialogue. We want to bring facts and substance so that we know that we're dealing, what we're trying to improve. How do we measure that? But what you'll notice is we don't come and tell you what the solution is, because we're not the entity that can say, here's how it gets done. We need really true community engagement, we believe, to begin to create the types of improved outcomes that we want to see. Dr. Franco made mention to some of those, creating statewide systemic improvement to how we serve students across the full continuum is very important. And so I would say to the school board member in the rural community, we would welcome an opportunity to engage with you in a meaningful way to talk about how do we improve student outcomes from your community. We're not going to assume we know what the answer is, because every community might have a little different nuance. The role of the business community might be different in my hometown of Miami, Arizona, that it is in Yuma or inner city Phoenix or Tucson. But the point is we have to collaborate together to create the solutions and the systems to improve our student outcomes. We now better understand the economic value of post-secondary degree completion. That's what this report tells us. What we don't speak to is all the work that we need to do together to get it done. Some of it is public policy, working with the legislature, getting expanded of dual enrollment as one example, but there's many more. How do we get more investment? How do we get more strategic investment? How do we create the type of partnerships where businesses can ensure they're working with the education system to develop the workforce they need to ensure their continued success? How do we work together to ensure that we take data and data analytics, but we take it to action? It's fair to say, as you mentioned, if all we do is deliver a report and we don't do anything with the report in terms of action and engagement, the report has no substantive impact. The impact comes with what do we do now? And again, we're not here to tell anybody what the answer is or tell any student what they should be doing, but we want to engage every student in Arizona to ensure that they have equal opportunity to pursue post-secondary success after high school for the benefit of themselves and their community and the state, because we now can define that. So our call to action is a commitment to work with all of you. I know Education Forward is going to be leading a statewide effort to raise awareness, to engage. We stand by their side with partners like Dr. Franco and the universities and the colleges to work with you to better serve our student population and get the economic value that we want to see, that this report shows us is the opportunity for Arizona. So we're really excited about this, but we want to engage with all of you to improve our outcomes.
All right, thank you, Paul. And I want to thank our audience for tuning in with us this morning and sharing this conversation with us. I apologize for not getting more from the chat, more questions from the chat. We could have had another half hour. You folks were so so helpful with that. But I'd also like to thank Dr. Paul Peralt for joining us this morning, Dr. Marla Franco from the U of A, Paul Luna, and Rich Nickel. And also thank you to Education Forward Arizona and Helios Foundation. And I hope everybody has a great day. And we will see you at our next morning scoop.